Jonathan, as we mentioned there at the top, that press conference was full of personal attacks, falsehoods. Trump called Harris not smart. He dismissed any suggestion of Democratic momentum. He compared his crowd size to MLK's historic address in Washington. He said he doesn't think abortion is a big factor anymore. If he was looking for a reset this week, was that it?
Not the reset he was looking for. The one thing we always have to, well, two things you have to remember about Donald Trump. He's the most transparent politician at least I have ever covered, meaning that when he's doing something, it's not all that complicated. Just the simplest thing that comes to mind, that's the reason why he's doing it. And the reason why he is doing it is not so much a reset, but it's his upset that Vice President Harris and now Minnesota Governor Tim Walz have been dominating the news cycle. They have been the subject of multiple stories in print, online, television, the memes, social media, and he has been pushed to the sidelines. This was his effort to get back on the front pages, to get back into the national conversation. Remember, Donald Trump comes from the New York tabloid school, which is all press is good press. It doesn't matter what they're saying about you as long as they're talking about you. And as long as we're talking about him, for better or for worse from his perspective, it's all good for him. Unfortunately, for an hour, all the American people heard was a torrent of lies, grievance, racism, misogyny, xenophobia. And the more he talks, the longer he talks, the more the American people are reminded, I think, of his 4 years as president. And it could gin up the conversation for a lot of folks in the electorate. Do we want to go through that again with him in the White House?
Kayla, what's the sense from the Harris campaign about what they've seen from Trump in just this last 24 hours or even less than that?
Well, I think the sense in general is that they don't feel like they necessarily have to respond to these attacks. If they just let Donald Trump speak, he can walk into his own trap. These are comments that are very unpopular with voters in general when it comes to attacks on her race and identity. And I think that's why additional debates could work in Harris's favor. She's only agreed right now to that September debate. But if you just let Donald Trump speak for long enough, he easily veers into these gaffes. And I think we have seen Kamala Harris be very disciplined when it comes to messaging. She's focusing on the economy, on abortion, on gun violence. And I think that's going to continue. And for sure, that's going to work in their favor because these are things that voters care about, certainly here on the West Coast, in Arizona and Nevada, where abortion is going to be on the ballot. And right now they're using this term weird that really Tim Walz championed. They're not really taking that hard stance against Trump. And I think they don't feel like they have to do that.
Jonathan, this joint campaign appearance with President Biden and VP Harris together next week, how do you see his role in her campaign?
Well, one thing I want to point out, Anna, is that Yamiche said that this was an event that was being put on by the White House and the vice president's office and not the campaign. So we should temper our expectations in terms of how much of a campaign-like event we're going to see. However, the visuals of the two of them physically together for the first time since President Biden dropped out of the race and since Vice President Harris claimed the top of the ticket and the fundraising stories and the enthusiasm, and it's going to be sort of the visual passing of the baton from President Biden to Vice President Harris in a way that we didn't get when the vice president went to the Wilmington campaign office and they did it via, she was on camera, but he was over the phone. And so I think it'll be the visual passing of the baton that the nation wants to see, but also is good for her campaign.
Keeps that tent broad, not alienating those who really, really love President Biden. And Kayla,
right.
The messaging here has been interesting. In 2020, Biden really made democracy the focal point of his campaign. He talked about saving the soul of democracy. But we don't hear that message much, at least, from Harris during her rallies. Instead, she's focused on being a joyful warrior. Different message, different tone. This feels like a very different Democratic campaign.
Yeah, this has been really interesting to see because democracy mentions of January 6th, that was central to Joe Biden's pitch for reelection. That has not been the case for Kamala Harris. And something that I've heard from strategists is democracy can be frankly convoluted. It means different things to different people. Yes, it polls well, but it in fact polls well with voters from both parties. But I think going forward, Harris is really going to be under pressure to sort of define her policy proposals when it comes to the economy. She hasn't really done that. She hasn't really had to. And something that Donald Trump and JD Vance have both been hitting her on is the fact that she hasn't sat for an interview. And she did say yesterday that she plans to do that by the end of the month. Of course, that is still weeks away, but I think that is the next step for them is how are they going to find themselves and how are they going to be different, frankly, from Joe Biden's approach to policy.
Kayla Gardner and Jonathan Capehart, thank you so much for that discussion.